For our parents, the day was December the 7th. For our children, it was September the 11th. For us, it was November the 22nd, 1963, the day our world changed. More than 60 years later, questions still remain about that fateful day in Dallas, Texas, when President Kennedy was assassinated. And questions do exist for a number one song that may or may not have been influenced by the mood of the country that followed his assassination. My name is Phil Yale, and this is Unfiltered. Let's start with a question asked and answered 1,000 times. I'll ask you, where were you on November the 22nd, 1963? I know where I was when I found out. I was 6 years old, a first grader. I was walking home from school. And just like every other day when I was walking home, I stopped at my town's only payphone to see if there was an extra nickel or dime in the coin return. It was there that I heard someone say, the president's been shot, or President Kennedy's been shot, something to that effect. I don't remember the exact words. But I do remember by the time I had finished the final 100 yards from that payphone to my home, somehow the world had been changed. Something was different. It had gone quiet. I know I got instructions when I got home. There would be no friends to come over. There would be no playing outside. There would be no parties. There would be no celebration. I do remember that. Do you remember that? There was just this somber feeling that draped our entire country, whether it was in a small town like I grew up in or in New York City, the home of Paul Simon. I was talking with a songwriter by the name of Mark Lee Shannon, and he told me that he saw the role of a songwriter as an observer and a reporter. And that is a description that seems to apply eerily to the Paul Simon penned song, The Sound of Silence. After observing the people and the mood of New York City, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening. Did Paul Simon write about the mood that followed after November the 22nd? Maybe, maybe not. More than 60 years later, nobody knows for certain. Now there's some talk about a handwritten lyric manuscript for the song that was dated February the 19th, 1964. Of course, that would have been after the assassination. But there are some others that indicate the song may have existed in some form in September of 1963. And even Paul Simon, his explanation of the song and when it was written has varied over the years. So, hey, we don't know. We don't know. We do know this. The song was written by Paul Simon. It was recorded as an acoustic track by Simon and his partner Garfunkel, of course, Art Garfunkel. That version went nowhere. In fact, the duo parted ways. Paul Simon went over to England, and unbeknownst to them, a producer by the name of Tom Wilson took the existing recording and overdubbed it with electric guitars, bass, and drums. Was he inspired by Bob Dylan going electric? I don't know. Either way, that amped up version was released and it rocketed all the way to number one in 1966. So what happened to Simon and Garfunkel as a result? Well, with a number one hit, they reconnected, ultimately yielding songs like Homeward Bound, I Am a Rock, Bridge Over Troubled Water, and more. As far as the song goes, 50 years after it was a number one hit in 1966, the song found a whole new generation of an audience. In 2016, Disturbed's version reached number one on Billboard's mainstream rock songs and hard rock digital songs charts. The video, which I know I've seen, it also won Best Rock Video at the Loudwire Music Awards. If you're familiar with Disturbed's version, you probably fall into one of two camps. Experience tells me this. Either you love it or you hate it. As for me, I like both versions. And I'll admit, I like Disturbed's version even more than Simon and Garfunkel's. Controversial, I know. Sound of Silence. It's a song that many connect to a national tragedy, whether Paul Simon intended it to be or not. And when that song came out, it was released on vinyl. And as we all know, vinyl records have grooves. Some grooves have tales just waiting to be spun. Join me again so that we can spin those tales together. I'm Phil Yale, and this is Unfiltered.